Well, I never know when it's live or really live.
Oh,
I think the little yellow button
I have a little sign.
tells the
I have
tale.
a little yellow thing says live.
Yeah, but it always teases you beforehand. It's like, this hangout is live. Is it? And now it is. So hi. Welcome to Liberty.me Live, subheading Free Association. Sheldon Richman is the man of the hour, and I'm the lady of the hour, I guess. And we are here, unfortunately, to talk about Trump. Because you just gotta sometimes, even if you don't wanna. And Sheldon has a piece about Trump, and we're also going to talk a little bit about some libertarian reactions to Trump lately, some of which, to generalize, we find a little bit unsettling. So if Sheldon wants to start us off, we have, there are many roads to take on this subject, alas and alack. So go ahead, Sheldon.
I'll take a few minutes. I'll take a few minutes to start things off, just to bring everybody up to date. Trump has a commanding lead. In fact, CNN is now calling it that he'll win the Florida primary. So with about 45% of the vote, and Rubio in the 20s, I don't know, 28 or something like that, if that holds. So that's pretty bad for Rubio. But it looks like Kasich was leading in Ohio, and I suspect he'll win. Well, maybe commandingly. Anyway, that's the background. I wanted to say something about this article I just did on Trump. It's all over the place today, Liberty.me, and my blog. I guess it'll be on Reason, I hope, tomorrow. And then I want to use that really as a context for then talking about this new effort that's just been launched called Libertarians for Trump, which is hard to say with a straight face. I didn't read about it in The Onion, I swear. In fact, Walter Block, a man we all know and love, and that I've known for a very long time, is, I guess, the co-chairman of this. So my theme about Trump, which has been on my mind for a while, but I only just got around to writing it, and I haven't seen anyone else say this exact thing. Not that I can read everything, but I don't remember seeing this, which surprises me, is that the key to Trump, the thing that explains so much about Trump, is what I call the aggrieved-nation shtick. Now, it doesn't matter whether he believes it or not. Who knows if he believes anything? The point is, it's the theme of his campaign, and it seems to be motivating many, the people that most or all the people that he, in fact, is motivating. And the aggrieved-nation shtick is this idea that, and if you listen, as I say in the piece, when Trump is not adoring himself and belittling others, this is what he's saying. The United States is like the 99-pound weakling. Most of you are probably way too young to remember ads in the back of comic books for Charles Atlas. Charles Atlas was sold, I don't know what it was, an exercise regime to make yourself into a strong, person. It was a pitch to guys. And so the cartoon character was the 99-pound weakling, right? The skinny guy, you could see his ribs. When he's on the beach, people would walk by him and kick sand in his face. He got no respect. I also compared it to Rodney Dangerfield, saying, I get no respect. Anyway, in the Trump story, that's the United States, right? We're the 99-pound weakling. Everybody takes advantage of us. As he puts it, we don't win in anything. We don't win with trade. We don't win with the military. We don't win at all. Everybody eats our lunch. Who's everybody? Well, it's just about everybody. China, Mexico, Japan, Germany, Saudi Arabia. He doesn't name the Canadians for some reason. I don't know why. You name it. Everybody takes advantage of us. We have been the saps, according to Trump, since Reagan, I guess. He does praise Reagan, so I guess it wasn't happening in Reagan's years. I'll have to just date it from that point. And, of course, he's going to make it right. Now, this is too reminiscent of the ways that many strong men have taken power over the decades. I'm not saying he's Hitler. I'm not even saying he's Mussolini. However, a big part of their message, Mussolini and Hitler's message, was the aggrieved nation theme, right? We have been treated like crap by the world, and it's not going to continue. Put me in power, elect me. Yeah, even the Nazis were running for election. they never got a majority, but, you know, get us in power and I will fix this. And that, of course, happened in Latin America, strongman, Perón, all kinds of strongmen. This is it's the most efficient way, I guess, to get to power, is to convince a lot of people that we have been treated like crap and we're not going to take it anymore. And Trump is doing that. And that unifies all of his positions when you think about it. And then it goes a bit further, because it's not just foreigners who are doing this to us, but he talks as if there's a fifth column movement inside the United States that's stabbing us in the back, that are participants in this, the politically correct, right? The quote, the liberals who are politically correct and too soft on illegal immigrants and Muslims and, you name it. He wants to give the cops, as he said some months ago, I want to restore power to the police. He also said the police are the most abused group in the country. So this is all part of the theme of, we have been treated badly. I am going to fix that. We're going to be top dogs. And the way he terms that is, I'm going to make, or we're going to make. I think that's more the royal we, not literally he and the American people. I think he means him. He himself is going to make America great again. By that he means we're going to be top dog. And when he talks about making great deals, he doesn't mean deals for mutual benefit. Because as he said recently in an interview, I beat China all the time, meaning in his private dealings. Well, in trade, as we all know, libertarians know, you don't beat the other person in trade. You come to mutual terms where both walk away, assuming they don't believe they made a mistake. They walk away thinking, I got the better of this deal, but I also know the other person got the better of the deal from his point of view, because that's the values are subjective. So anyway, the reason I think I also know why this is not talked about. Maybe libertarians talk about it, but why mainstream analysts and politicians and his rivals don't attack him over this aggrieved nation status, the theme. And I think the reason is, to do that, you have to point out that America, it has not been a victim all this time, or ever. America has been a military, political, and economic bully for a very, very long time. And I could take that back actually to the founding, with a few periods that are exceptional as we go along. But certainly since the Reagan years, who could say the U.S. has been a victim? It rules the Middle East. It bombs at will. It goes to war at will. It overthrows governments at will. It supports tyrannical regimes at will. I mean, I could just go on. And on trade, of course, Trump makes a big deal of trade, how we've been taken advantage of on trade. That's nonsense. These trade agreements have accomplished exactly what the authors and pushers of them wanted to accomplish, which is to impose intellectual property regimes on the developing countries, so they can't make those products on their own without the help of American companies and American-based multinational companies, because they'll get hit with copyright and patent infringements if they do. So, and also you could make a case that NAFTA and CAFTA and all these did not destroy jobs. They might have shifted employment, but manufacturing in the U.S. is at an all-time high, manufacturing output. If employment is not at an all-time high, it's only because factories are very highly automated these days with computers. Very few people work in them. In fact, I heard today in Ohio, where Trump complains about what NAFTA has done to Ohio, they can't find well-educated, trained people for factory jobs, high-tech factory jobs in Ohio. There are jobs that are going wanting because they can't find people qualified to take them. So those agreements, he's wrong. Those agreements don't hollow out manufacturing and don't destroy employment. They may shift employment, but they don't destroy employment. On the other hand, they do what big American companies want, which is impose intellectual property on developing countries. So feel free to jump in, Lucy.
Well, I mean, we can talk a little bit more about, given all that. I'm sorry. Tell me the phrase you've used again. Aggrieved nation.
Yeah, aggrieved nation shtick.
Yeah, that analysis in particular, that exact sort of phrase, actually, I find more chilling, because that does make you think more of the historical strongmen, more than just more than some of the attempts to connect Trump to, truly terrible figures in the past. I don't know. I find that phrase you've hit upon to makes him seem even more unsettling. Which, of course, brings us to the question: why the hell are so many libertarians seemingly on board with him?
Right.
That's the great mystery of our time, apparently.
Well, and that's interesting. That's what we need to talk about and see if there's anything to it. And I hope people who are watching this will make comments or ask questions, which we'll be monitoring the chat area there. So let's make a distinction. Justin, has not endorsed Trump, even though he points out the advantages of Trump versus his rivals. He's always very clear about pointing out all the negatives, and he has said, it's not that I'm endorsing him, but I want to say that he scares the neoconservatives, and
right.
He'll point out a couple of things. Now, I don't agree on net with Justin, because I think to pull a couple of statements out of context from Trump and say, oh look, he's much better than the others, overlooks the thesis I've offered. I think on net he's a scary, dangerous, bad roll of the dice. It's almost a case of better the devil you know than the one you don't know. Right,
which people have argued that as well. I was arguing with someone earlier today, because as a libertarian, it's my job to argue on the internet incessantly. And he was convinced that Hillary Clinton herself, the devil we know herself, was a better choice than Trump, the unknown devil. And I'm not, I'm considerably less enthused about Trump than Justin Raimondo is. And as you say, Justin Raimondo, people who know him on Twitter are not going to know that some of his writing, even on Trump, is much more nuanced. So if y'all in the internet universe ever get peeved at Justin, read his actual columns and forget his Twitter trolling, because he's trying to annoy you.
So let's talk about libertarians for Trump. I'll put the link up. I'm not afraid to give the block link. I'll put it up here. It's a very short article. He spends a lot of it talking about why libertarians, shouldn't be afraid to get involved in politics. So we don't need to. Let's talk about the Trump-specific stuff. He's trying to justify libertarian voting. I don't think it's immoral to vote. It may be, from my point of view, useless and a waste of time. But so we don't need to debate that. The reason he's in favor of Trump, and again, it's very short. It's really one paragraph. He pulls out of context. Basically two things out of Trump. Trump now says the Iraq War was a disaster, which of course we all know it has been. And number two, why do we need to go to war with Russia? Which is also a great question, and we should not be going to war with Russia. A great deal of attention should be given, much more than there is, to getting rid of American and Russian nukes, because that's a scary thing, which hardly anybody talks about. So that's basically the argument. So he says, compared to the other candidates, how can you beat that? He points out the big mess in the Middle East, and then he says the same thing's going to happen with Syria. So let's not repeat the mistake. And then he talks about how why can't we get along with Putin? Now I agree with those statements. We shouldn't be going to war with Russia. And I don't think we should be overthrowing Assad, because there's every reason to think it'll make things worse. We shouldn't do it anyway, even if we thought it was going to make things better. But I mean, as far as practical consequences, it's going to make things worse. It's going to help the Al-Qaeda types, the Bin Ladenites, or the people that are even worse than them, the Islamic State types. But I would say I don't trust Trump. Trump may say that. Trump, first of all, lies when he said he was against the Iraq War in advance. He wasn't. We now know he told Howard Stern, there's audio of this, when Stern asked him, do you think we should go into Iraq? This was, when George W. Bush, this 2002. He said, yeah, I guess. He hadn't even given it any thought. He didn't seem to care much about it, but he said, yeah, I guess. But then he added right after that, maybe we'll get it right this time, the way we should have done it in 1991. In other words, he was saying George Bush's father should have done this. So that shows some enthusiasm for regime change. It wasn't until a year later, when it was already going very bad, that he said it's a disaster. So he's a liar when he says he was against it.
Well, we know Trump's a liar. I mean, he's it's incredibly easy to prove that notion at this point. It takes a simple trip to Google. However, the standards about the Iraq War, like the bar is so low that the fact that Trump said negative things about it in 2004 is unfortunately still semi-impressive, because compared to a lot of people and compared to a lot of pundits, even, he actually may have seemingly figured it out earlier. And that's, you know, it's less praising Trump as it is dissing a huge number of people who, you know, on the 10th anniversary were like, oh, I'm so sorry, let me self-flagellate about how wrong I was a decade ago. Oh, isn't it awful? And somehow made it vaguely all about them.
We have a medic standing by in case you strain yourself bending over backwards like that.
Exactly. And it, like, you know, I can
medic,
name
stand by.
the sort of reasonable pundits of the world who somehow were so easily swayed into this.
You also said he was against the Libya intervention. That's not true.
No?
Can't find no evidence that he opposed the Libya intervention. He also says he wants to bomb the crap out of. He didn't say crap. I don't know. Why can we say crap, but we can't say shit? I don't know. Out of ISIS and take the oil.
Kill the family members of terrorists.
Yeah, we're going to do it really fast so we can get back here and rebuild the infrastructure. Well, if he's going to do it really fast, I don't even think this would do it really fast. But if he's going to really try to do it fast, that sounds like Cruz's carpet bombing. How else do you do it fast? I don't think it will. It'll still be a quagmire. Also, if you're going to take the oil, don't you have to stay? The oil's not sitting there in barrels on the shelf. It's production. So you can't just like send special ops in, grab the oil, and leave. You got to stay and work the oil fields. So he's calling for a quagmire.
Yeah, he is. It's true. That's such a basic point that almost no one has pointed it out, that you need, as you say, it's not on the shelves. He also wants to bring back waterboarding and worse than waterboarding. And as scary as Ted Cruz has become, Cruz actually waffled a little bit on, and I mean waffled in the positive sense for once, on the torture question. And that, of course, led to the lovely confrontation when a fan of Trump said Cruz was a pussy because he didn't want to waterboard everybody. And Trump sort of, you know, happily agreed with the sentiments and then sort of said, oh.
And then when it was pointed out to Trump that the military would have to disobey the order, he said, don't worry. If I give them an order, they'll obey it. Remember he said that in the debate. Now, the next day, he had to seemingly walk that back, but where he said, oh, no, of course we have to obey the law, and we have to obey our international treaties, and so, yeah, we'll obey the law. But then he immediately said, but we need to broaden the law.
Right.
Now, Ilya Soman pointed out in a very good column on the Volok blog, which is run at the Washington Post, Ilya Soman pointed out, who's a Cato-related guy, libertarian, that the way Trump worded things, he really didn't foreclose anything. Because by broadening the law, he could just mean he could get his own John Yoo to come in at the Office of Legal Counsel, right? Give him a memo saying, hey, under the inherent powers of the executive under the Constitution, you already have the legal authority to do this, and then Trump can say, it's lawful. I'm giving the lawful order because my lawyer guy here, my mouthpiece, like they say in the mob, you know, my lawyer, my John Yoo, tells me it's perfectly legal. So there's no assurance in his so-called walk back whatsoever. So he's just not to be trusted. You know, I think we're a little hard on him when we call him a liar, because to lie you have to know what the truth is. I just don't think he even understands what the concept is. I think he lives in this world where anything he needs that's convenient is true.
Yes. I spend too much time trying to wondering what's in the heads of various politicians. Trump is very strange because he doesn't pander to anyone's intelligence. He has this incredibly limited vocabulary. He says, if he says deals one more time, I'm going to lose my fucking mind, because he just says it the same. I mean, he's pure slogan, which I think he's sort of, he is a politician at its essence, where you strip away some of the bullshit, but it turns out there's still bullshit underneath. It's just bullshit that's even more sort of fifth grade level. And I mean, when I see, as I've said before, I see the straws that Block and Justin have grasped at, but they're so much flimsier than they're making them out to be. I mean, I think in the recent Republican debate, they was talking about ground troops against ISIS, and Trump was easily pushed into saying, you know, I guess it because, you know, some military experts said we'd need 30,000 ground troops to defeat ISIS. Well, I guess I could do that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not, you know, you can, like, I appreciate if he was just there to insult Dick Cheney and then not actually, you know, win the office, he would be a good time. But
and there's something else. He didn't even know that the general never did give it 20 to 30,000. Who was it that wrote that? I forget. Was it? That wouldn't have been Justin because that was too critical of Trump. But someone pointed out that the premise of the question was wrong from Jake Tapper. He said, you know, General so-and-so, and he named this general, said 20 to 30,000 troops would be needed. But this article reproduced what the general said, and he just was very vague. He seemed to be talking in terms of special ops, which wouldn't be 20 to 30,000.
Yeah, I don't.
But Trump didn't know that. He just took it as on authority from Tapper that this general said that. Okay, so yeah, I guess that's the number I hear floating around. So yeah, I would go with that. The other thing that's I think significant is this whole, you know, we can't let Muslims in. Because you notice how he said, and this whole Islam hates us. Remember that in his interview with Anderson Cooper. Now I don't even know what that means.
Doesn't mean
Islam
anything.
hate you? Does Judaism hate or love anybody? Does Christianity hate or love anybody? It's not a person.
No, it's not.
It's an idea. It's a set of doctrines. But so it doesn't mean anything. But here's the key thing. You notice how when he first made the statement about how we can't let Muslims in. Remember how he stressed until we figure this out, and then he brought that point up again in the Islam hates. When he was asked why do they hate us, he said to Anderson Cooper something like, "You figure it out, and then maybe you'll win another Pulitzer Prize." In other words, he says he doesn't know. Remember, he said we can't let Muslims in until we figure this out. Why doesn't he know the Ron Paul fact that Ron Paul makes such a big deal of in his two campaigns, which is backed up by, you know, many scholars and analysts, Robert Pape and others? We know why. Mm-hmm. The reason is because we bomb over there, and we've been supporting dictatorships, and we've gone to war, we occupied, we support the oppression of the Palestinians. There's plenty of reason. Look up Bin Laden's, everybody does that, Bin Laden's fatwa from 1996 or 98, online. Read the fatwa. It's a long declaration of war against the United States by Al-Qaeda. He says exactly why. It's not because we have MTV or we're licentious, and he doesn't leave it vague. It's because we have military facilities near Mecca and Medina. We had, I guess they've taken them out once we went into Iraq. The starvation of Iraqi children and the killing of Iraqis in the 90s because of the embargo and the bombing under Clinton. I believe there's a Clinton running for president. I think they're closely related. And the third thing, of course, is the support of the Israelis against the Palestinians. He's very clear about why he's declaring war. Why is it a mystery? So if Trump is, number one, so smart, and if he's truly a non-interventionist, which is what they're trying to, or at least a realist, okay, let's not go hog. Let's say a realist, which is what Justin and some of these others want to argue. Why doesn't he go in for the kill when he attacks George Bush for the war and say they only hate us because of that? If we get rid of that, maybe they'll stop hating us, and that will take off the pressure of terrorism at home. Instead, he leaves it out. We don't know why this is happening. Because
he's either not smart enough, or he is so smart that he's not going to use an unpopular argument when xenophobia is right there, since it's so easy to cultivate. I mean, those are your choices. Yeah. He's either savvy enough or not savvy enough.
So it's interesting that therefore he doesn't really lead this group of Trumpites. He ran in front of them to lead them. He doesn't really lead them because he can't lead them in another direction. And I've wondered about this. I posed the question on Facebook. You know, could Trump tomorrow decide to be a free trader and an open borders guy? And would people then say, well, if that's what Trump thinks is right, then I'm with him? I don't think so. I think they desert Trump, most of his people. I think Trump is facing the Gail Wyman problem. I've called him Gail Wyman without the virtues. Remember in the Fountainhead, Gail Wyman thought he controlled the masses through his populist kind of newspaper, right? His muckraking newspaper, and he whipped up, public support for causes of various kinds. Not very admirable things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when Rourke is now being brought to trial for the destruction of the building, he decides, by then he's met Rourke and he's kind of, the fog is clearing. He understands the mistake he made, right? Which he thought as a young man, you either rule or you are ruled. And it took him all this time to realize, no, that's not the choice. You can be a Randian, right, and not rule, or neither be a ruler nor a rulee. So he now wants to take his masses that he thinks he controls and get them to support Rourke. So he starts going pro-Rourke in his newspaper, and they hate it. They destroy his paper. People go knocking over the newsstands. Watch the movie sometime with Gary Cooper, tearing up the paper, stepping on the newspaper with Rourke's face, Gary Cooper's face. There's a big black, footprint on one of the scenes. He couldn't control it, and that's where Rand, leads to the line that a leash is just a rope with a noose at both ends. Ooh. They controlled him as much as he thought he controlled them, but he thought he controlled them, but they actually controlled him. I think that's the case with Trump. I don't think even if Trump realized that it's U.S. foreign policy that is the instigator of anti-Americanism and terrorism. I think you're right. He couldn't tell people that because that would undercut the narrative that's been so successful for him.
Right, and there's still questions about why somebody like Trump has this terrifying amount of success right now. And whether, I don't know as much about like the Buchanan campaign and things like that, things where I was a small child and blessedly unaware of politics. But Trump, the populism is the easy way of talking about him without any of these sort of fear of going too far and saying totally a fascist, 100% certain, because it's hard to be certain yet. But populism, it's kind of a surprise to me to see something that actually appears to be more empty than politics as usual. Because politics as usual is full of like, well, we hired these experts and we made this policy paper, and that proves the war in Iraq is going to be totally rad, and that there's no knowledge problem, and we're going to make the economy awesome because we have a chart right here that says so. He's less than that. He's emptier than that, which is almost more honest, but is also sort of more appalling in a slightly different fashion because he is pure emotion and pure aggrieved-nation shtick, as you say. It's fantastic and alarming turn of phrase.
He can't undercut that at all. So the moment you say, well, they're mad at us because we've been trashing the Middle East for, since 1991 directly, but also supporting, even before that, supporting corrupt monarchs and dictators and Israel's oppression of the Palestinians. The moment he says that, what happened to the aggrieved nation? We're now the bully. We're the big tough guy, or seemingly tough guy, who's kicking sand in the face of 99-pound weaklings. It totally turns it around. He can't say he can't do that, even if he may know it.
I love. I have to give you a quick tangent on Blowback. I love that the motives of America are so important that like mass slaughter like doesn't count, like because our motives are pure, you see, and they're noble and enlightenment-y, and the motives of the people trying to kill Americans and our allies and who are commonly called terrorists are so unimportant that when they have a little pamphlet that says what their motives are, we still like, nope, who can say why they did it? No one knows. So our motives like actually erase killing, and their motives are like couldn't teach us anything useful at all. Boy, that's convenient, isn't it?
Right. No, that's right. And I think this is really important. This the way he plays innocent. Like, I don't know why they're doing this. We got to figure this out. We got a problem here, folks. He's supposed to be so smart. Also, he also claims, he's always going to know the best people, get the best people. Well, why doesn't he talk to Robert Pape? Why doesn't he talk to a whole list of people? In fact, who is it? Daniel Larison at the American Conservative has a pretty good article or blog post about whom Trump ought to talk to, assuming Trump's going to get the nomination. Who should talk to in foreign policy circles that might give him some good advice. And I think he named Pape, but he named other people too. here's a guy who claims he's going to draw on the best people, and he doesn't even have a clue why some people, and it's still a minority, a very small minority, would want to do harm to Americans. That's sort of delinquency on his part. He's just sitting around, oh, we got to figure this out, folks. Has he done anything to try to figure it out? Like talk to people who understand the region?
I sincerely doubt
it. I don't know why that doesn't get him laughed at.
Well, it's because it's not about that. It's because this is a blowback political success story. And I do think that a lot of it comes from, it's a combination of things. And some people think, well, political correctness gave us Trump. And I think that's a little too convenient for certain people's narrative. But it is a frustration with DC and with experts, and it's appeared in this awful form, and in this principleless form that again is just populism. It's like, aren't you mad? I'm mad, and America, and it's bad now, and it wasn't, and it was great before. I mean, it's like, I don't think it does much good to call Trump supporters stupid, but this is some simplistic shit. And it's not gussied up in DC expertise and policy expertise and fake intellectualism. It's just really goddamn basic. And I think a lot of people are really, really baffled on how to actually fight against that. And I don't think voting for Hillary Clinton is the answer. But that is what some people are going to do when it comes down to Hillary Clinton versus.
Well, thank goodness you only have one vote. Thank goodness you only have one vote, and your one vote's not going to be decisive, so you don't have to worry about it.
I shouldn't worry about it, but it really bothers me because cumulatively, because there's so many people in the world or in the country with vague libertarian sympathies, and when it comes down to it, they always vote for whomever they think is slightly less idiotic, and people who should know better are going to vote for Clinton or for Trump because they horrify them less, and they're both so very horrifying. Oh, this is so awful.
Yeah. I agree with you that the Trump people, I think it's wrong to act like they're stupid. I think Brian Kaplan can shed a lot of light on this. His book, the myth of the myth of the informed
rational
voter or something like that.
I haven't read it yet. I meant to.
Is really worth reading because he talks about how people generally, and he sees this in public opinion polling on issues which have been, are taken. He goes over decades worth of public opinion polling, and so people generally don't understand economics. So they have a bias against markets. They have a bias against foreigners. They have a bias against trade. They don't understand the win-win, positive sum of trade, and they also tend to think that these are the worst of times. So put all that together, and you get Trump. People are busy with their lives, and they don't study economics. And so look what's happened since about 1999 or so. We've had a couple of bubbles and recessions, and so that added to the normal shifting of jobs and industries, which is always going to happen, right? Even in good times, the United States, there's a turnover. I forget how many millions, 15 million jobs are destroyed and created in a good year. That's the normal churn of a market economy, even in one that's so intervened by government here. So you've had people thrown out of work because of recessions and bubbles that burst and all that stuff. But because of government intervention and new government interventions, like the Affordable Care Act, recoveries have been very slow. So people do experience the economy as being sluggish, and their incomes are not growing fast, even if they have jobs, or they're not getting full-time jobs after a recession. So they're frustrated, but they're not going to be able to figure out whose fault it is. They're not going to say, oh, it's the Fed, and it's government housing policy, and it's Obamacare. That takes some sophisticated patient study and reasoning. But Trump can come along and say it's NAFTA, and it's the elite, or it's it's stupid leadership who can't cut good deals. And that does seem very simple, and it seems on the surface to explain it.
Well,
so I think that helps explain a lot of Trump.
Yeah, and in a sense, it is stupid leadership. Leadership period obviously is adding to this this mess. But the thing with Trump is that he is not even shallowly our friend. He's not even Rand Paul level of our potential sort of friend. He's not even Ted Cruz before he went truly awful. I mean, Trump doesn't talk about making the government smaller. He doesn't talk about DC isn't bad. Politicians are bad to him because they're in all of our business. They're bad because they're doing it wrong, because they're incompetent, because they haven't cut the deals properly, because they've let bad things happen.
Or they're corrupt because of campaign finance. That too. But you're right. He thinks the problem is lack of good leadership. He's the good leader.
Fucking liberal in some ways. I mean, that's often their conceit, is that if we just got the right people.
Right. There's no fundamental questioning of whether government should be doing something. It's just that we've had either bad and or corrupt leaders.
Right.
Stupid and or corrupt leaders, let's say that, put it that way, who don't know how to cut deals or don't cut deals because, they're on the take from campaign donors. And he's clean because he's now financing his own campaign, which is partly a lie. He's lent money to the campaign, and he's raised $7 million. If you watch the John Oliver commentary on him, which is really great, it's on my Facebook timeline, you can find it. On his website, he's got 2 donate buttons. So for a guy not asking for money, why does he ask for money? And that he's raised $7 million, which he could then repay himself in partial repayment for loans he's made to the campaign. So let's not get too excited about the finance stuff. So here's another thing I was going to say. Presumably, and maybe I'm giving him much more credit than he deserves, was he paying attention to the presidential campaign of 2008 and 2012 when a man by the name of Ron Paul was running, saying the kinds of things we're now saying regarding foreign policy and regarding domestic policy, what causes recessions and stuff like that. If he was paying attention, did that catch his ear and say, hey, wait a second, that sounds, assuming good faith now on Trump's part, so I'm really making heroic assumptions here.
He's just the dumbass.
I'm going to need the medic to treat my back. Anyway, you would think somebody who's so outside and so daring and so bold would say, maybe that guy Ron Paul was on to something. Let me go talk to him. Why do they hate us? And Ron could say, they're over here because we're over there. Like he got Giuliani upset that night. But no, we don't see any of that. And then here's where the media falls down so badly. I mean, if you had decent interviewers, and none of them are, they're all terrible. Why when he's saying we got to figure out why Islam hates us? Gosh, I don't know. But we can't put any Muslims until we figure. Why doesn't one of them say, well, there is a point of view, maybe it's right, maybe it's not right, that Ron Paul articulated, that it's our foreign policy. What do you think of that, Mr. Trump? No one even asks him that.
No one has yet to ask him that, as far as I know, yeah.
No one has asked him that because it's not on the horizon. They dismissed.
It's not popular on cable news.
But there are serious people. It's not just Ron Paul who you can say, he's a doddering, avuncular, political, over-the-hill guy who was charming and ran his campaign, but he's gone now, and his son is no Ron Paul. Okay, you can dismiss Ron Paul. But if you're paying attention, if you're a national security correspondent like, somebody like Jim Sciutto, who I don't think knows anything about this, why doesn't he say, well, let's ask him about the Robert Pape stuff. I mean, here's Trump openly wondering, why do they hate us? Well, Robert Pape says, and he studied this, he's got a whole center at the University of Chicago, says, here's why. It's correlated to occupation and bombing people. What do you think of that, Mr. Trump? At least throw it out to him. Maybe that would make an interesting interview. Why doesn't anybody do that? I'm venting my frustration. My first career was in the news business, and I took it seriously.
Yeah.
I tried to ask people good questions. I was a libertarian then, and so I think that gave me a clue about what questions to ask. I really do. But it seems to me you don't need to be a libertarian to say, well, here's a question for Trump. Let somebody go ask him this question. Where they got all these kinds of producers and news editors who are supposed to be thinking up stuff, and they feed it to the correspondents, right? Ask Trump this. They'll say. The correspondent usually knows nothing. He looks good on TV, or she looks good on TV. But there's supposed to be brainier people who you never see, who have the earpiece, who have the mic that corresponds to the earpiece in the correspondent's ear, and saying, ask him about maybe they hate us because we bomb them every day, and we bomb wedding parties and children. Could that be a reason they hate us?
Possibly.
Anyway.
We'll check into that.
I'm venting like crazy here.
I know, it's lovely. I really enjoy it. All right, devil's advocate follow-up. Maybe it doesn't matter if he has no principles, if he is already vaguely, he said weird things about being neutral on Israel and Palestine and not fighting with Putin. Maybe, maybe the bloc types and the anti-war types think that, he's sort of an empty suit, but like you can maybe push him a little bit and he could fall into the right area, even if he's not full of principles, just because he's new and doesn't have the sort of, he doesn't yet have the type of lobbyists and defense contractors to be accountable to and to be, you see what I'm saying? I mean, I think there's this urge, and you can get really Cold War-esque binary and stupid about it and say that, well, because he made fun of Dick Cheney, he must be our treasured libertarian friend. And that's stupid. But there is a school of thought that says, my God, it is so bad that let's just, let's find this new guy who has at least on occasion blathered out something that sounds like it's something new, something that we haven't been doing, something that says, let's be neutral on Israel and Palestine. And sure, 5 seconds later, he said, no one's a bigger friend to Israel than I am, but darn it, he said the other thing. I don't know, I'm trying to...
Yeah, but the next thing he said was right after that, he said, at least let's let them think, let the other side think I'm neutral. Like they're not watching CNN?
Right. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
So you gave it away anyway.
He's kind of the burn it down candidate. Like my social anarchist cousin almost wants to see Trump so that he breaks the U.S. though.
Yeah, well, breaks the Republican Party at least to have it all the pieces on the floor, and maybe look what's to lose. When the pieces get put back together, maybe it'll be more libertarian. I mean, we're just taking a chance, but it's better than it is today, right?
I can see to some point the appeal of that, but he's a little too frightening. He's a little too frightening for me to really want to pursue that.
The reason I don't think you can mold him is that he's worse than an egotist. He's a narcissist. Yeah. I think he really is worse. And it reminds me a little bit of what Randolph Bourne had to say when the progressives were all jumping on the Wilson War in 1917, and they said, we can guide this and use it to our advantage, to the advantage of our reform agenda. And Bourne's answer was, it's like thinking you can jump on a wild elephant and steer it. You're crazy. You're never going to do it. And of course, Bourne was right. So I think Trump's the wild elephant. I don't think they're going to steer it. Certainly, Walter Block's not. So let's say Trump gets in. He's going to make Walter Block what? Chairman of the President's Council of Economic Advisors?
Probably not so much now.
Is he going to make Justin Secretary of State or National Security Advisor?
No, he's going to fucking call John Bolton on the phone and some other.
Yes, John Bolton. And who else has he been consulting? Not people like John Bolton, right? Not.
Yeah. I mean,
not even the realists like Bacevich or Mearsheimer and Stephen Walt, the people that Larison says he ought to talk to. People should look that up. I don't have that either.
This is a very twisted type of optimism, the people supporting Trump. It's very, I don't know, it's very strange. Now, there are some, like the people that Jeff Tucker has been pointing out with horror for like a good 6 months now. Like there are the bona fide white nationalist neo-Nazis who think Trump is delightful. Mm-hmm. And admittedly, some of those horrible people liked Ron Paul as well. But you had, flawed though he was, and in his first presidential race in 2008, he courted those creeps more with the anti-immigration stuff. And, the reason Ron Paul is as good as he is to me is because he was at his best the last year he was in office, which is the opposite of what anyone does. He actually became less awful as the years went by.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the point is that, I mean, you know, this is tangential, but like the Ron Paul types, they may have an unfortunate, like, Stormfront-esque type of person who thinks they're swell because they think, yes, indeed, I will be left alone here. But I think you can argue there's a difference there because Ron Paul, I know there's some subjectivity here, but there was a principle. There was a DC is in your business principle. There was a very simple, but in a good way, moral principle about how killing people is both bad and it angers the survivors and the family members of the people you kill, or even the people who share the religion. I mean, there were principles being expressed, standards, and that simply isn't coming from Trump. And he, as several people have pointed out, including my lovely commie cousin, he took off after he started he called Mexicans, rapists, and like before he decided Muslims were the scariest thing of all. I mean, again, I don't want to it does no good to say like, oh, you white trash Nazi immigrant haters, you're so stupid for supporting Trump. It's not going to get you anywhere. But it is very unsettling, and I have no idea where to begin to counter it. This anti-immigrant sentiment is really easy and apparently super fun to cultivate and to ride as a wave of success towards the presidency. It's easier even than starting a war, I would say, and has happened possibly even more frequently in American history. And that's just not enough. The handful of things you said, or the dissing of Dick Cheney, or the being an outsider, I don't think it's enough. And this just goes back to, this happens in the outside libertarian bubble, and within it, there's this constant pressure to pick. Like, do you want to be on the side of yay all immigrants, but war we can take or leave, or do you want to be kind of war is really bad, but immigrants are also bad side? And I really resent that I still feel like I'm being pushed with Trump's help this time towards like having to pick one of those.
Well, I always thought Ron Paul was actually a closet open borders guy, and the reason I thought that, right, and I wrote some blog posts about this. And the reason I think that is that even though he always said he was not for open immigration, he opposed, and I still assume he still does, opposed every concrete proposal. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to build the wall. He didn't want to put troops down there. He didn't want to militarize. He didn't want to put the cost on business people. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to do anything that the Republican Party wanted to do to address the so-called immigration problem. And yet he would still say, we can't have open immigration when there's a welfare state, to give kind of the Milton Friedman argument. So I really wondered, maybe he wasn't really anti-immigration. Because if you don't want, if you say, look, I'm not for open borders, but I don't think the government should do anything about it, then it sounds like you are for open borders.
Yeah, I mean hopefully that was a hint, all right. And he said at least once in this way that sounds paranoid, but is totally sort of legitimate in my mind, is that borders can be turned inwards. I mean, that sounds lunatic to a lot of people, but I think it's a reasonable sort of safety measure that you don't want a 2,000-mile stretch of wall with surveillance drones and 40,000 Border Patrol people. I mean, you don't want that. Like, it's obviously not small government for myriad reasons. It's, but just you don't want to be quite so blasé about handing over that sort of thing to the government, saying, sure, patrol this whole area. I mean, it just seems obvious, yet somehow terribly paranoid to say that kind of thing. But
don't they patrol 100 miles in from any border or coast, which is where most of the population is. The ACLU pointed that out. Most of the population is within 100 miles, I think it is, of.
Nobody will respond. No conservative, no border hawk will ever respond when I bring that up. It's like they just wish it away.
And they have checkpoints on east-west roadways far from the border.
They already have that, and they want to double the amount of Border Patrol agents. They want to militarize it further. I'm sure they'd be happy to have more drones and such patrolling. This is, if you don't give a shit about immigrants, Fine. I mean, not fine, but fine. But this is already, you know, harassing American citizens. There's lots of sort of classic, like, the libertarian type, like, you know, who will make their videos on YouTube where they just say, am I being detained for 8 minutes at the checkpoints until the Border Patrol gets mad and sends them on their way. I mean, that's happening. You also have some of the true horror stories where it's combined immigration, drug war punch, where people have been pulled over and had everything searched for drugs, you know, at which I don't know why that's not sexual assault, just with the help of a hospital and law enforcement. I'd say that it is, actually. I mean, things like that, they're happening to Americans as well. And this is one of those issues that conservatives, mostly conservatives, but, you know, liberals too, you don't talk about it. The fact that American citizens are already suffering because of border security. And if you double it, maybe you'll double that part too. And they just they won't talk about it.
And of course, if you're Hispanic, but here legally,
or a citizen,
even a natural born citizen, you're in for harassment,
right?
And delay, in going on your business. I frequently pass an immigration facility. I'm in California these days. When I'm heading on Interstate 5, which goes along the coast toward San Clemente, way above, you know, well north of San Diego, so certainly well north of the Mexican border, and there's an immigration station there. It's not a checkpoint. You don't drive through a checkpoint, but there's a facility there. And I assume they have cars out looking for people, suspicious people.
They do stop you sometimes.
I'm informed. My wife in the next room, they stop you sometimes. We haven't been stopped. I guess we don't look like immigrants.
Well, that's just part of. I mean, it's just part of the whole. You know, again, I'm going to blame conservatives, but don't think I'm letting liberals off the hook. Where you just hand over an enormous chunk of power to the government without even thinking about it. And yet you're the ones who are skeptical of government power. It's just, it's atrocious. And yeah, we've already let that go way too far, and yet you have every single person saying, my God, the border's in disarray, and the immigrants are streaming over, and even people that I want to, you know, like better, you know, your Justin Amash and your Rand's Paul, are still the ones saying, well, we have to secure the border first. Yeah. I mean, it's secure. My God.
Actually, I thought these days the flow is the other way. Isn't there a net? I believe there's a net outflow.
Last I checked, it was. I'm not sure in the last maybe year or two. In 2012, it was zero net, and I think a little bit afterwards, I'm not sure.
I think it's negative. I saw a headline just recently that it is negative. Also, deportations, which of course we don't approve of, but Trump will complain, the Republicans will all complain about Obama. He's setting a record for deportations.
It's just...
How come Obama's not getting credit for that?
I know. Well, in the same way, I don't understand why Hillary Clinton doesn't get credit for being a disgusting hawk from Republicans. I mean, she really deserves a prize for that. People are entitled to their own facts, turns out, at least when the partisanship comes into play.
No Republican's going to give her credit because they don't want to say anything nice about her.
Yeah, but I mean, I think she deserves it, you know?
They won't give Obama credit.
Yeah.
You know, the worst thing they can say about Libya is just Benghazi. They never talk about the larger context about what was going on in Benghazi. Yeah. Why were they running guns and mujahideen to Syria from Benghazi? Yeah. And then maybe did Ambassador Stevens get killed because of something to do with that? As we know from Seymour Hersh, they were running what they called the rat line, right, from Benghazi to Syria through Turkey, guns and people to overthrow Assad when they denied that they were doing that. So.
I think. I should read more of him.
So anyway, I see CNN has now called Ohio for Kasich, has called Florida for Trump, and it's called Ohio for Clinton. So that's a setback to Bernie. I'm a little sad. I was hoping Bernie would win that, but he's now lost. I don't know what the percentages are, but
I think that means Rubio's got to be done now. My God.
Rubio is now losing with 90% in, 45.7% to 27%.
Now, I wonder if he'll stay in just to try to continue to screw over Trump as much as possible, if there's going to be some collusion happening.
Yeah, it looks pretty weak. I mean, they were saying on CNN that his money people are saying, forget it.
Yeah.
He said he was going to
stop Trump, though? Not even to try to...
Trump's people said he was going to go to Utah, which I guess is the next contest after this, no matter what happens. But they were quoting money people saying he's not going to have any money.
Yeah.
Has he announced he's quitting?
Yeah.
He's announced he's quitting. I got a late bulletin here. Rubio's quitting. Sanders loses in Ohio 64.5% to 34. That's a blowout by Clinton.
Yeah.
He really wanted to win that. He I guess had some shot at winning that. And she wins in Florida 64 to 33. It's pretty much the same margin. And she won in North Carolina 56 to 39. Trump's winning North Carolina 40 to Cruz's 35.5 or so. So it's a big night for Cruz, except for the little bit of a slowdown with Kasich.
Oh, I forgot about Cruz, yeah. And Kasich basically said if he doesn't win Ohio, he's out, and I guess he just won Ohio. So
they're giving him Ohio. They're only showing 20% in. He's got 43 roughly to 34 for Trump, but they're calling it.
Man, we could have a whole nother podcast about the horrors of Kasich and how he's getting.
Yeah. He's terrible. Yeah, he's terrible. But he's the grown-up. He's the grown-up.
Yeah, it's so twisted. It's the same people who think a photo of Hillary Clinton hugging George W. Bush at Nancy Reagan's funeral is somehow like a sign of what politics should be instead of what it is in the worst possible sense. It is that. Politics is literally George W. Bush hugging Hillary Clinton at Nancy Reagan's funeral. But the people who want politeness, the Dana Milbanks who think that Dick Cheney swearing somehow demeans politics, but Dick Cheney doesn't demean politics. And those are the people who think Kasich is wonderful because he talks in this Ohio/Western PA. Well, guys, can't we just hug a little bit and not be so mean about how we need to overthrow Putin and have a Department of Judeo-Christian values? Can't we just all get along like that? He's this condescending Christian creep, and he's not getting any credit for it. My old boss, Matt Welsh, wrote a couple of pieces scornful of him, and I, of course, did a Kasich piece for my Playboy series on how everyone is the worst candidate ever. But generally, the liberals like him, like the New York Times like him. That never bodes well, even for a conservative.
Didn't you just point out on Facebook, or I think it was you, he said somebody needs to punch the Russians in the nose?
I don't know if that was me, but I think I tried to note that. And
he's supposed to be the grown-up. Somebody said, this is the grown-up?
Yeah, no. That's how people, I mean, that's, if you...
they have nukes and we have nukes. Let's not go punching people with nukes in the nose.
No, it's not.
They don't like that. People don't react well to that.
No,
well, listen, I see we are past our allotted time. Any shows to plug or not?
As usual, I am ill-prepared for that sort of thing.
Okay. All right. Well, stay tuned. There's something good coming.
Well, again,
yes.
Let me.
Rubio has suspended. Yes. Guest Consuela is telling us that the LA Times reports that he is suspended, but we already announced that. But thank you.
To be dignified, let me just say, suck it, you neocon.
And then there were three. Yes, because it was today. I put this Rubio. I'm glad to see Rubio go. He's the one who just yesterday said, or maybe it was this morning, it was in the news, that criticism of Israel is the new face of anti-Semitism.
Okay,
to which I added, well, the newest face of anti-Semitism is criticism of Rubio.
I mean, as libertarians, we can always we should take the enjoyment, the Schadenfreude where it comes, and say, "Suck it, Marco Rubio, you neocon."
And Bill Kristol, take that, Bill Kristol, and the whole Weekly Standard. We have to take our victories where we find them. Shake hands.
Beautiful. I feel better now. That's a good way to end it. However, people.
Okay, folks.
Go read Sheldon. Free Association blog, Liberty.me. His writings are there. His Facebook is good. He has many extra comments and many exciting threads result. His Patreon, so give him money for his good works.
Yes,
I don't know if there's anything else. He's on the Twitters.
I'm on Twitter.
Else?
Yeah. My stuff gets reproduced at Counterpunch and Reason and
right.
Media with Conscience.
Okay. And me, Anti-war. Yeah, I swear it's like passive aggressive, but like I'm excited to share anti-war, the little columnist box with you. It's a good place to be in.
Yeah. Good group. Good group.
And I'm going to go now write something about the horrors of the primaries today for Playboy. So it's not that easy to find my Playboy work because Google. It's harder because they don't have nudity anymore, but it's kind of hard to dig out the quality writings of me. But on my Twitter, Lucy Stag, I tend to link to my Playboy stuff. So that is often the easiest way of finding my work. My Stag blog Facebook page, which you can like, also tends to have my work. Though my actual blog, I don't update as much as I should. Anyway, anti-war, Playboy, Twitter, read me, and obviously read Sheldon. And this was fun and depressing and bracing as usual. So thank you for watching, everybody.
Back in a fortnight.
Yes, and thank you, Sheldon. It's always a pleasure. I will see you soon.
Same here. Bye-bye.
Right, bye.
Good night, all.